Yo, what's going on YouTube? Lightsaber Samurai here, and we're back again for another video. And if you thought you knew all there was to know about hidden gems for the original PlayStation 1, baby, this is the remix. Okay, so we are going to start off in the action-adventure genre, and if you've been watching my YouTube channel lately, you know I've been streaming this guy here. This is Konami's Soul of the Samurai, and in this game it takes place in feudal Japan. Looks like it's somewhere around the Edo period. You can play the story as two distinct characters. You've got the Ronin and you've got the ninja spy whose names I can't remember at the moment, but this game takes place where the female here, she is trying to track down a missing gold shipment at the same time that this Ronin wanders into town to pay respects to his family. And once they get there, needless to say, all hell breaks loose. This is a great game, and it's not exactly a hack and slash game so much as it's a true action adventure game, and this one plays a lot like Soul of the Samurai that came later for the PlayStation 2 and other systems. And playing the game, this kind of actually made me feel like it was a precursor to that game. It takes place in the village. It's kind of a semi-open world where you travel around the village and a lot of the areas outside around it, and that's where you take on missions and combat enemies. The city is kind of your hub world where you kind of take on side missions and make purchases and things like that. And so, I mean, it's very Soul of the Samurai feel, or excuse me, Way of the Samurai feel to it. And like I said, it takes place on static screens. The combat is excellent. The combat, it's very slow and methodical, so it's not exactly crazy hack and slash, but you have a cool parry move. You can also learn a variety of special moves that you can use to dispatch enemies in 1 or 2 hits. Like I said, this is an excellent game, and one I never hear talk about, but it was definitely one of my favorites from back in the day. So you know what to do. If you see Soul of the Samurai, make sure you put it in your collection. Alright, coming up with the second game, and we are staying with the samurai theme, but this time we are hopping in the fighting game genre, and this time we are talking about Bushido Blade number 2. And Bushido Blade 2, of course, was the sequel to Bushido Blade. This is a very excellent and unique series in the fact that there are no health bars, no time limits, no mercy, as it says on the back of their game disc, and that's very much true. A single strike can end the fight. I mean, if you catch an enemy with a fatal blow, like a slash across the head or to the heart or a stab or something like that, you can take out an enemy in one single blow. And like I said, that made it very intense. The combat styles were very realistic for the time. The graphics were on point at the time. You can fight in third-person view, or you can even fight in first-person view, where you're kind of like a wireframe character and you see you can kind of see your weapon attack the enemy. That was very unique at the time. I hadn't seen anything like it. And like I said, this game is brutal, it's bloody, and it's only on the PlayStation 1. And like I said, a game that totally got overlooked, but hardcore fighting game fans knew what time it was at the time this game came out. They was about it. So was I. So I'm glad I recently added this back to my collection, and you should do the same. Bushido Blade number 2. Okay, and so coming on to the next game here, and this one is it kind of has a bit of a soft nostalgic spot for me. This is Shadow Master, and you need to know that this is the ultimate fantasy shooter. I got this from my best friend growing up, my buddy Andre, and we used to talk about this game. We used to talk about how bad it was, but actually going back to it, it's not as bad as I remember it at all. This takes place in a future setting on an alien world, and you are basically trying to repel this alien invasion. You get in your battle tank and you drive around the huge areas and you blast enemies. Now, when you the thing that, like I said, I don't remember it being this good at all. And I think the game is actually a pretty competent shooter when I kind of took an approach of it being more of a first-person shooter than a vehicle combat shooter, whatever you want to call it. This is kind of like a 3D version of Blaster Master, but like I said, Blaster Master Blasting again, we took a look at that in our last video, but this is kind of Blaster Master from the cockpit. And like I said, I think it plays really good. The graphics are actually pretty decent for the time. This is I think came out in around like late 96, early 97, so it's kind of among the first batch of the first or second batch of games that we got here in the States. And so like I said, I got this from my buddy way back around 1998 or so, and been holding on to it. I'm glad it's still in my collection. Actually, like I said, this is also can be categorized as a game that isn't as bad as you think, so maybe we'll take another quick look at it in the future. But like I said, this is a game that's less than $10 and definitely worth the price of admission. So if you see Shadow Master, go ahead and give Shadow Master a try. Do it for me and do it for Andre. Yeah. Okay, next up, I've got a crazy platforming game, 3D platforming by the name of Wild 9. Now, interestingly enough, this is done by Shiny, and this is developed by the team that brought us Earthworm Jim on the Genesis and the SNES. That's dope. And this plays it pretty much like a cross between that game and Oddworld, in this you play as the character whose name again I can't remember. I don't know why I space on the names of these video game characters, but the cool thing about this, it's not a simple just hop on an enemy or kick or punch an enemy as you travel through the stages. No, he has this arm where he can grip them, and he proceeds to, you can use the arm to slam them back and forth until they explode, or you can use the arm to telekinetically pick them up and throw them in the traps. Hilarious, and it's cool to discover all of the different ways that you can destroy enemies in this game. You can set them on fire, you can grind them up in spikes, you can drop them in acid. Like I said, the aforementioned smack them on the ground. You also do get some one-use weapons like missile projectiles and things like that. This is not an easy game at all, and you will be grateful for every one of those checkpoints that comes along. But this is and this game is not frustrating. It makes you want to keep playing it despite its difficulty level, and that's the sign of a great game. It's kind of a dark and gritty take, very similar to Earthworm Jim. That, like I said, the art style is very similar, and this is the closest thing we got to Earthworm Jim on the PlayStation, and it's definitely worth the price of admission. This is a game that I see constantly for around the $10 mark, so definitely, this is highly recommended for me, and nobody remembers Wild 9, so definitely put Wild 9 in your collection today. Okay, and moving on with the final game on my quick list today for hidden gems for the original PlayStation. We're gonna go with an RPG, and in fact we're gonna go with an action RPG. That was Threads of Fate. Let me try to get that out of the glare, but Threads of Fate on the PlayStation, of course, and this was done by Squaresoft. This is before they were Square Enix, and in this game you take place as these two kids you can play as. Let me take a look at and cheat on the back. So you've got Rue, who's the guy. He's on a quest to find his lost friend. And no, sorry, that's Rue. That is the female. Mint is the guy that's looking for revenge. Mint is the boy. He has powers where he can transform into different animal and beast types of the beast that he combats throughout the game. He carries a giant keyblade before it was fashionable. Way before Sora did it, he was rocking the keyblade first, and he uses it to dispatch his foes. Like I said, he can also defeat enemies and assume their form, so he can turn into different like slimes and werewolves and all these different enemies with these different abilities. Some of them shoot projectiles, and that's how he gets projectile attacks. The other young lady, she can use a variety of projectile magic attacks, and she also has physical attacks with these giant blade hoops. Like I said, this is a game, again, nobody really talks about Threads of Fate. It's just like a fun, whimsical, romp through a fantasy land, and it plays very similar to me to like Mega Man Legends on the PlayStation, or maybe something more closer to like Mario 64, but like I said, the environment, some of the environments feel large and some of them don't, but like I said, over the years, as we've gotten introduced to games like Grand Theft Auto and the Skyrims and all that, none of these levels feel as big as they used to, but don't let that deter you at all. It's got nice, colorful graphics on the for the PlayStation game. I think they still look very good today. It has a cool story, even though it's, you know, kind of a story we've seen before. But two separate adventures, two separate protagonists, each with very different play styles, and you've got a recipe for success. This one's a little harder to find, and because of that, I think it's a little higher in price. But I think you can find this one for around 30 bucks or less. So that still won't necessarily break the bank, but this one's only going up. So if you see this, and especially if you see it at a low price, go ahead and snag it up or regret it later. So there you go. Alright fam, so that is gonna do it for this episode, but just lay it down in the comments below. You know the drill. What are some hidden gems that you have on the PlayStation, or ones you can remember fondly, games that people nobody talk about? Like I said, we can discuss it below. As always, I'm Lightsaber Samurai. Please like and subscribe to this video if you're feeling sexy. I do believe that's all I got for you, and peace.